everyone, and welcome to The Sprinkled Life. My name is Heather, and I'm so happy to have you guys here today for this Pinterest recipe testing video. If you are new to the channel, which most of you probably are because this is only my second video, welcome. I would love for you to consider hitting the subscribe button and turning those notification bells on so you don't miss out on future lifestyle and baking content. So today's video is extra special because, as some of you might know if you did catch my first video, I actually have another channel that's dedicated to all things Disney because I'm a huge Disney fan. That channel is called the Sassy Cinderella. I'll link it down below too in case you're a Disney fan. But the whole point in me saying this is that some of my really good friends in the Disney community got together and decided they wanted to do a collaboration that was a testing Pinterest recipes video. When they asked me to be a part of it, it was a no-brainer because I was already planning to do Pinterest testing over here on this channel. So I said, yes, I absolutely want to do that. And I did get a little delayed in the video just because of things that were out of my control, but here we are today and I'm so excited to be sharing it with you. I'm gonna leave their links to their videos down below as well because they did all different types of recipes. So drink recipes, we've got breakfast recipes, all different things. So I'll put those down there for you if you enjoy recipe testing. So because we are here in the holiday season, I decided I wanted to do something that just felt like the holidays. I am a sucker for gingerbread and I am also a sucker for cake because my background is 15 years in professional cake decorating. So I'm at home with cakes. That's what I wanted to look up. So I searched Pinterest for gingerbread cake recipes and what came up was actually a molasses cake recipe, which I'm assuming is probably gonna have sort of that similar holiday feel. So I've got the recipe here, and I also printed out a recipe for a cinnamon buttercream that I found on Pinterest because I thought those two will go really well together, all those holiday spices. So we're gonna actually kind of have a double Pinterest testing as part of this video. I've laid out all the ingredients, but I'm gonna read the list off to you as well. It's a half a cup of white sugar, a half a cup or 1 stick of softened butter, 1 egg, 1 cup of molasses, 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, 1½ teaspoons of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, a 1/2 teaspoon ground cloves, and 1 cup of hot water. So I've got all that laid out and ready to go. I went ahead and I preheated the oven to 350 degrees, so that will be the temperature that you want to go ahead and preheat to. And I'm going to leave the ingredients list down below so you guys can refer back to it as well. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we are going to cream together our softened butter and our sugar. So I've got my 1/2 cup of sugar pre-measured out, so I'm just gonna go ahead. And then I have my stick of butter here softened, which again, it flexes, but it's not too mushy. It's actually perfect right now. So we're gonna go ahead and put that in as well. I've got my stand mixer here. I've got the paddle attachment. I don't like to use the whisk attachment for this because it's just too thin for going through kind of the thick butter. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start stirring this on low. And then I'll pick up the pace a little bit. Okay, so I went ahead and I cracked 1 egg and I'm going to add that in now as well. It says add egg and beat well and then mix in the molasses. So we'll start with the egg and we'll mix again. Okay, so now that I've had the egg mixing, I'm gonna add in the molasses. Do you guys see this? It is so thick, and man, molasses is strong. I have forgotten how strong molasses smells. So fair warning, when you open the jar, wow. We're gonna add that in. I'm gonna add the heart attack into the mix here. I feel like we're gonna be here for hours while this drips out. All right, so that was our cup of molasses, which was almost that entire jar. All right, so we're gonna turn our mixer back on. Wow, it's different than any cake I've ever made before, I gotta be honest. Okay, so now that that is mixed together really well, which I will show you in a second what this looks like because it has definitely mixed up to more of a, cake batter looking consistency. Now we're gonna do the dry ingredients, and I do like to sift my dry ingredients personally, so let me grab a sifter and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I've got a sifter, I've got a good size mixing bowl here, and I have this awesome Dessert Queen spatula that my sweet subscriber over on my other channel gifted me. I love it, so now it's gonna go to good use. So we're gonna start off with our flour, which is 2½ cups. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start with 1 cup and just sift it through. And next we're gonna add 1½ teaspoons of baking soda. Okay, then I'm gonna add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 whole teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Okay, then we have 1 teaspoon of ground ginger. And then last but not least, a half teaspoon of ground cloves, which I've made a complete mess with. That's fine. What else is new? I can already tell you from years of cake decorating, I am not that person that wears their chef's apron with pride with no spot on it. I look a hot mess, but it turns out okay. So hopefully that'll be the case today as well. Maybe this is just my luck. When I'm messy, we know we're onto something. Okay, so then we're gonna mix together, or whisk together if you prefer, the dry ingredients. The next step is going to be to add the dry ingredients to the mix. As I know from experience, I like to go about a cup or a half a cup in this case at a time, because dry ingredients tend to fly everywhere. So even though it just generally says to add ingredients, the dry ingredients, I'm not gonna do that. I'm going to add a half a cup at a time. And I'm gonna go ahead while this is mixing in and start my water, getting it kind of hot, because we do need a cup of hot water here in a second. Okay, so you'll notice as well that as I'm going, I always keep a spatula on hand to scrape the sides of my mixing bowl, because a lot of the dry ingredients get kind of stuck to the sides, and you know, you're losing that out of the recipe. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I'm ready to add another half cup here. Okay, so I've added all the dry ingredients. It is time to add the hot water, but I want to show you guys what this is looking like right now. I don't know if you can see this, but it is a very, very thick consistency, almost like a dough right now. So I can see why we need that water to help thin it back down. Okay, so we're adding the hot water. It's 1 cup. And because there is a lot of liquid in here, I'm gonna put it on a very low speed, which is what I did when I was adding the powdered ingredients as well. So again, it didn't go flying everywhere. So we're gonna add that. Okay, so we're all mixed up here, and I've greased 2 7-inch rounds. I believe this called for a 9-inch square, but yeah, I'm not doing that because most people don't have square pans. I'm gonna just give you guys a piece of advice too here. The quality of your pans makes a huge difference. I use Magic Line pans. There's also a brand, I think it's called Fat Daddy-O. Those pans are really good too, but especially when you get into working with square cakes and things, those real sharp edges, you're gonna have much better luck with a high quality pan that has that sharp edge. And I have had times where I forgot to grease a pan and I still got my cake out of these rounds without sticking. So, not that I'm recommending you do that, I don't. But these pans are a much better quality pan, so I love them. Hopefully the 2 7-inch rounds will work here. So now we definitely have much more of a batter consistency. It's just kind of folding off of the paddle here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off, and maybe I'll taste test just the batter here in a second. I'm that person, sorry. And that is my cat saying hi, who likes to scream through every video I ever make. All right, I wish I had one of those pour spouts on here, but I'm gonna go ahead and just allow this to fall into the pan. Okay, so change of plans. That's why we do recipe testing, right? That's why we're here. So that was a total fail, putting it in the 7-inch rounds. I would assume it'd be a fail putting it in the 9-inch square though too. So I'm a little confused by that. It barely filled up anything. Granted, I don't know how much rising this batter is going to do, but my husband so nicely ran upstairs and grabbed 2 6-inch rounds, and I filled those instead. Even then, I'm generous in saying that they are filling half of the pan. So this is gonna be a really true, test here of Pinterest. And it does say on the recipe that it is a longer bake. It says 50 minutes to an hour, which I'm assuming will be probably shorter with the smaller pans. And the person who wrote this recipe says the tops of the cake tend to darken quickly, so to put a piece of foil tinted over the top during baking. Okay, we're gonna do that and see how that works. I feel like this is like a serious ET moment with tin foil over my cake, but we're gonna go for it and see what happens. And I mean, it smells really good, but I've never made one quite like this before, so wish me luck, fingers crossed. Okay, we have something that looks like something. I don't know if it looks like a tent, but we're gonna put it in the oven at the 350 degrees. I'm not gonna do the 50 minutes. I'm gonna check in maybe about 30 and see where we are at. I'm just gonna use the old toothpick. I'm just gonna use the old toothpick method here and see what happens. So, okay, so both cakes are in the oven. I'm gonna clean up now and we are gonna start with the cinnamon buttercream while the cakes are baking. Okay, so cakes are in the oven. Now it's time to try the buttercream. So I have this recipe printed off that I had to copy and paste. I feel like you could just screenshot this. I made the font so large, you could just screenshot it and you wouldn't even need me to put the ingredients list down below, but I'm going to put it down below for you. And this calls for 1 pound or 4 cups of powdered sugar, 1 cup of butter, or 2 softened butter sticks, which I have here. They said that they used salted sweet cream butter. That's not what I had. I have unsalted butter, so that's what I've got here. 2 to 3 teaspoons of vanilla, so I've got the extract over there. 1 to 2 tablespoons of milk. I guess they're eyeballing it. That's actually like quite a bit different. Okay. And maybe we'll just split the difference. We'll do a tablespoon and a teaspoon. And then 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So I actually have almond milk. That's what I have at home. So hopefully that will work just fine. They did mention they weren't sure how technical this recipe was, but that it tasted good. It's what came up, so it's what we're trying. All right, so starting off, it says to measure out 1 pound of powdered sugar. You can sift if it's really lumpy, but that they don't always do that. I'm going to do that because I prefer to sift my powdered sugar. Because it is 4 cups, I actually think I'm gonna set this mixing bowl aside. I think I'm gonna sift straight into the actual mixer itself. Okay, we gave up on sifting because it's kind of clumped up at the bottom right now, not wanting to do anything, so I guess we just aren't gonna sift either, so problem solved. Let's add 3 more cups. Now they did say that sometimes they will just mix the powdered sugar a little bit to break clumps up for like 30 seconds. So I went ahead and grabbed my whisk attachment and I'm gonna give that a try since my sifter is not wanting to cooperate at the moment. It is a very fine sifter, so probably slightly less fine one would work better for the powdered sugar. Okay, so that did seem to work pretty well. The next step is to add in the softened butter. It is just about perfect, so there'll be 2 sticks. And then now I'm gonna put that paddle attachment back on so that we'll work through the butter a little bit better. Don't forget to lock your mixer and start low because all that powder's in there. Okay, so now we have our butter and our sugar creamed, and the next thing it says is to add 2 to 3 teaspoons of vanilla. I start with 2 and then add more at the end. Okay, so again, this is not the most specific, 2 to 3. I guess we have a dealer's choice here. I like the taste of vanilla, so I'm just gonna go ahead and be generous here and add it all now. Now our vanilla is incorporated. Now it tells me to start my mixer. I'm not really sure what I was doing before, but it says start it on the lowest setting, try to keep sugar from flying out, and then now it says to add 1 tablespoon of milk, and that you might have to add more later if the frosting is dry, so we are gonna start with 1 tablespoon. Okay, so it says to incorporate the milk for about a minute, and once it's done, to kind of check the consistency and the flavor before adding the cinnamon. I'm actually gonna stop halfway through here and just sort of press the icing off of the paddle so that everything gets mixed nice and evenly. Okay, so now time for a quick taste test. Just gonna get a little bit off the side there. It is a little bit gritty, in my opinion, so I am gonna go ahead and add that extra tablespoon of milk. And then I'm gonna mix again for about a minute. Okay, so now that that's all mixed in, the next and final step it says is finally add 1 heaping teaspoon. 1 heaping teaspoon of what? To the buttercream. You can adjust the amount to your taste. Okay, so we're gonna add 1 heaping teaspoon of cinnamon and just fill in the blank because that's the only ingredient left, but it definitely did not tell us what that was. So adding 1 heaping teaspoon of whatever I feel like. So here we go now, we're gonna mix in the cinnamon. All right, so the cinnamon's mixed in, let's try this. It's very subtle. It's very subtle. but they did say that it takes a bit of time for the spice to blend in and really settle with the frosting. So they have found that a teaspoon's the right amount. So I trust that, that makes sense. And I think the cake is gonna be a really strong flavor, so I think even if it is a little more subtle, that's gonna be okay. So we're gonna stop right there, and now it's time to check on the cake. Okay, so I just got the cakes out of the oven, let them cool for maybe 25 minutes, and then I popped them out of the pan. I'm actually gonna go ahead and just level this cake kind of an old-fashioned way. You can actually use a leveler, which I'm sure a lot of people do, but I'm actually, with my turntable, just going to take a bread knife, like a serrated bread knife here. I'm going to cut inward a little bit, and then I'm just gonna start rotating my turntable into the knife. I am keeping my elbow locked. Just gonna remove this top part here. As you can see, it's a nice flat top, as long as you don't try to like actually shave through the cake and you just let the turntable do the work for you. It's pretty easy on a small cake to do this without a leveler. Okay, so now it's time to crumb coat our cake. If you have never crumb coated a cake before, I'm gonna leave a link overhead and down below to an instructional video I did on my other channel before starting this one. I will probably eventually kind of give that a refresh and put a video on this channel, but for now, it is there and available for you. So to start our crumb coat, I do have this gold 10-inch board, and I'm gonna dive into this buttercream here, and I'm just gonna rub a little bit down in the center of the board and go ahead and do my crumb coat. If you find that icing a cake is a bit challenging for you, it does help to chill the cake before doing this process. I'm ready to go because it's already late at night here when I'm filming, so I'm gonna go for it. But just a little tip for you in case you are newer to icing cakes. Something else you might notice is that I'm actually using a really small angled spatula. When you get into smaller cakes, like 6 inches down, it helps to use a smaller spatula. The big one just gets too weighty and wants to pull the cake with you, so a smaller spatula is gonna work better. Okay guys, so that is it for our crumb coat on this cake. I will be back in just a second for the taste test. All right, so it is recipe testing time, officially taste testing time, and I have enlisted the help of my trooper of a husband because he has been here all night when I've been screaming at the oven and everything else that happens when baking happens at midnight. It's after midnight here right now, so we have earned this cake. So it is a molasses cake / gingerbread cake with a cinnamon buttercream. I didn't go crazy with the buttercream. I prefer less buttercream, which I don't know, are you buttercream or less buttercream?
Indifferent.
You're indifferent? Okay. Well, I enlisted his help because I figured, you know, we'll get 2 different opinions. So here we go. Okay, your thoughts first.
Tastes like a gingerbread house.
It does taste like a gingerbread house.
It's a little dry.
It's exactly what I was thinking. It's exactly what I was thinking. It's really funny because we were kind of like getting bits and pieces as we were going along, and we cut that extra off the top. And it wasn't this dry. It wasn't this dry when we first cut it off and it was nice and warm. I didn't notice the dryness until we actually let it set with the icing and stuff for a little bit. Normally it should still stay locked in on the inside because it hasn't been that long since we iced it, but the flavor's really good.
Yeah,
it tastes good. It's just kind of dry.
Not too bad though.
It's not too bad. I almost wonder, has anyone ever added, have you ever had cake where you put applesauce in the batter? It's like a substitute for certain things. You really can't taste it at all, but I'm almost wondering if you added a little bit of applesauce, if that would help with the dryness. Because that would go into that family of flavors too, where it would really go unnoticed, and it might help with the moisture a little bit, because the fruit, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Those are my genius thoughts. Put applesauce into the batter maybe, but I would make it again. I would maybe play around with it a little bit. It is a little dry. It's not, you know, unenjoyably dry. Like, I would eat it, but I don't know. Now that I've had it here for a minute, I don't know if I love it as much as I did when it first came out of the oven.
I think it does.
Well, that's because this one's good and I'm not. So I'm just like, give me everything. I'm gonna eat it off the spoon. So yeah, Okay, well, this was fun. I give it a 3.5 out of 5.
It's pretty generous.
It's generous. Oh, he really doesn't like it. No, I really like the flavor. I actually think the flavors are really good on both the buttercream and the cake. I think they're a good balance, and some of the strong flavor of the batter toned down in the oven. So I think it's really the right amount of spices. It's just too dry. What are your star counts?
Give it a 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
He told me I'm generous and he only knocks it down an extra half of a star. What is that? Okay, well, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Chat with me down below. Let me know what you think about this Pinterest recipe testing. I will be doing more of this on this channel, as well as some other, you know, delish and things like that. So this was actually a lot of fun to do some recipe testing, and especially with some of my favorite holiday flavors, and to get this one involved. You know, if there's food, I guess I can get you involved from time to time. So anyway, I do videos here every Saturday, so I will be posting again next week. If you like Disney content, go check out my other channel, the Sassy Cinderella, that is linked down below, and some of my other baking videos over there as well. Like I said, they're gonna be kind of migrating over here, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bedtime.
Are we not gonna watch Mando?
What do we need to do with all this?
Decadify it. Well, I mean, I don't want him to eat a paintbrush. You probably do want him to eat a paintbrush.
Some days.